Hello, this short video is to demonstrate some of the new features that we've developed for VisualFoundation 9.0. It is intended to be viewed by people who have had experience with VisualFoundation. One of the things you'll notice when you first start up VisualFoundation 9 is that the startup screen has some improvements. Namely, each project in the recent project list will have an icon showing the project, and if you hover over it, you'll get a larger view of the project. So hopefully that will make selecting existing projects easier. Let's go ahead and start the program, and I do that by clicking on one of the recent projects. And when I do that, VisualFoundation comes up, and you should notice the screen layout is essentially the same as it was in VisualFoundation 8.0. Some things to note though on the model view is that the objects now have wireframed boundaries, hopefully making visualization and selection easier. Area load graphics now contain a shaded area on the surface of the load, which will hopefully make selection of that object easier. Let's talk about some of the specific engineering features that have been added to VisualFoundation 9.0. First, a major change in naming. We now call what were called columns in VisualFoundation 8 piers. The naming change was done to be more consistent with foundations, where normally short concrete piers or pedestals are used for support for columns rather than the columns themselves. There have been some major additions in design of both the piers and of the piles. In this example, I have one pier and two piles. If we switch to foundation design and select one of the piers, we will see that we have additional options now for the reinforcement in the pier, and I can click on the dialog button, and when I do that, you'll see a dialog pops up allowing me to specify the reinforcing pattern type, the bar count, and the actual specific bars that are used in the pier. This is done so that we can provide design checks for that particular concrete pier. And if we look over in the project status, we see there is a pier capacity status now. And if I select that, we will see that a report appears indicating for the pier the specific code reference, and this is an ACI reference, and the unity check values done for that code reference check. So you can now design your concrete piers in VisualFoundation. If we go back to the foundation design now, and this time let's select one of the piles, we see that under the Pile Modify tab, we have a specification tab defining which AISC specification or Canadian steel specification that can be used for designing the steel pile. Piles now can be created as either steel shapes, as concrete shapes, or as wood shapes, and you have now the ability to design the pile and check unity check. So now if we go over to the project status and look at the pile capacity report and click on that, we will see that, for instance, for the axial check, we're seeing which AISC code equation reference and unity check and details values are currently used for the unity check. For those of you that have visual analysis, you should see that this report matches the VA design report. Going back to foundation design and showing again the specification, we see that there's a CISA 2014 specification available. So in VisualFoundation, we have now added Canadian CSA A23.3-14 concrete design specifications. So that is a new feature as well. Going back to the model view, we have the ability to specify pile sliding resistance as a specific number rather than treating as an infinite resistance as we did in either other versions. That option is located down under the soil parameters of the Modify tab, and the last item, infinite pile resistance, if we uncheck that, we now have the ability to enter a pile lateral resistance that will be used for the stability check of sliding. Another new feature is the ability to enter wall groups rather than having to draw individual walls. If we go to the Foundation tab and look under the support members, we have the ability to draw rectangular walls and circular walls. If I select draw rectangular walls and then just drag a box onto the foundation, you'll see now I've created a rectangular wall group, which is really 4 walls. We can draw circular walls in a similar way and therefore draw a ring of walls. These wall groups then can have loads applied, their properties such as height and thickness specified, and behave as groups of individual walls. Another new feature is the ability to move area loads based on their boundaries or edges. Under the Location tab, if I select an area load, we have left, right, top, and bottom values, and if we change these, the whole area load can be slid or moved using those values. If we go look at the reporting, we have some new options as well. Let's go ahead and remove the pile design report that we had and look at the design summary report. The design summary report now lists the maximum reinforcing steel used in the design of the slab. So we have maximum bottom X and Y and top X and Y values shown. Other reporting features are items that are small but rather useful, in that if I drag a report onto the screen, the report will get dropped where I dropped it on the report screen itself. So if I drag this analysis log over towards the top of the report, you'll see it's put in there. A small feature, but something rather useful. In addition, if we look at the select a report and look at the report filter, we have ways of now filtering objects based on their names. So we've added what's called a name filter. For those of you that use visual analysis, this is also something we use extensively there. And if you have, say in this case, many slabs, you can filter what's shown in the report based on the name of the slab by entering a value in the name filter. Graphics have similar features. If I look at the filter, we see that under slabs, we have a named filter there as well. So name filtering for both reports and graphics is now available. Another new feature is that under the Report All, we have the ability to report just certain tables in the entire report, whereas before all of these tables were included. Now you can specify certain tables only to include in the All report. Other miscellaneous things in reporting include the ability to show the self-weight and whether self-weight is included in the peer report, which was not shown before. Sometimes in filtering reports, you will have effectively filtered off all objects for a specific report, and we would not show tables of these types. Now we show the tables, and we show them in a grade state, indicating that they would be available if you would change your filters. A few more individual things. Let's go ahead and remove the wall groups that we created, and let's take a look at this pier. For piers, the punching perimeter now can be overridden. By default, we're not overriding it, and we're showing the code-defined punching perimeter. I'll zoom in a little bit, which is by code definition a distance d/2 from the face of the object. I have the ability now to override that punching perimeter offset. In this case, I'm offsetting at 2 feet, and this can be useful if you provide shear heads or shear reinforcement to extend that punching perimeter out. This option is available for both the piers and the piles. Zooming back to an isometric view of our project, we'd like to show a feature that we call snap points that has been added to VisualFoundation. If I turn off the default grid, then take a look at the filter under the slab details, and this applies for all other objects as well, we have a snap points option. I'm going to change that from 0 to say 3. When I do that, we see along the boundary of the foundation we have these gray boxes. These boxes are snap points for drawing aid. So for example, if I want to place a grade beam, I'll select Draw Grade Beams and then drag my mouse. It'll snap to these gray boxes and thus allow me to place my grade beam there. So snap points are something we've added, which is something we've had in visual analysis as well for those of you that have that program. Some other things. Sometimes it may be desirable to modify the boundary by stretching or moving just part of it. So we have added the ability to add a vertex along the side of the slab. So if I select two vertices that define the side of a slab, if I then use my right mouse button, I have the ability to insert vertex. When I do that, we see a vertex has been added. If I select that vertex that was added, I can move it. Let's move its Y direction to -6 feet instead of 5 feet, and we see we pull that boundary out. So adding vertices along a boundary is also a very useful thing. A couple other minor things. When you do DXF import, we now show the bounds of the DXF model that you're importing and give you the option to center it rather than just use the DXF drawing coordinates. So many times this will allow you to move the DXF objects onto your coordinate system you're using for your foundation. Column line drawing has been improved so that we don't have overlapping column lines, and this appears a lot when you have complex foundations with many objects inside, each generating a column line. So you should find that useful as well. I want to thank you for looking at this demonstration of the new features and hope you'll enjoy VisualFoundation 9.0.